any laws they want about anything. Without
Fresh Radio Vibes and NSMGTNT in association with the State of African Diaspora, SOAD, presents Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to Janet Lovely, International Business Development Officer and a representative for the Lumi via Canada. Learn how the Lumi matters in business, barter exchange, travel investment, saving accountability. Listen to the insiders about Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Only on Fresh Radio Vibes. Listen now and stay connected. Lumi Matters. Lumi.
No mining in the country, no mining.
St. Anna, Trelawney, choose life. Bauxite mining will destroy us. Defend your rights and save cockpit country, our health, our heritage. We water and we yam ground. Safeguard our way of life. Reject the 51-49% mining partnership. Them a bad mind.
No mining in the cockpit country, no mining. Jamaica people stand.
Fresh Radio Vibes and NSMGTNT in association with the State African Diaspora, SOAD, presents Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Hosted by Janet Lovely, International Business Development Officer and a representative for the Lumi via Canada. Learn how the Lumi matters in business, barter exchange, travel investment, saving accountability. Listen to the insiders about Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Radio Vibes. Listen now and stay connected. Lumi Matters. Lumi Matters.
Study to show yourself approved. You know what I mean? You
Yes, yes. Gotta say grand rising to each and every one.
Shoot about the money. Telling you the
Shoot about the money.
Yeah. You wanna
Shoot
shoot
about
for
the money.
Only if you know the truth, man. Okay. Shit. In the 1940s, money and gold were a couple. Everything did I work well until I'm hustle. The other countries start shuffling.
Gotta say grand rising to all the massive on the outside who tuning in also via our station. Keep locked, alright?
Them money no back to buy nothing.
Them money no back to buy gold.
Lying to the people. No finally the truth has been told. Them make a fiat currencies. No transparency. No Lumi we spending. Back earning
Energy.
It's not a fiat.
We got a special guest tonight. I know it's quite late over where they are right now, but the Lumi matters. The Lumi matters. That's what we have right now.
No, 15.96 US equal to 1. So them money no back to buy nothing, but it used to be back to buy gold. But they keep lying to the people. No, finally the truth has been told. Them little fiat currencies. No transparency. No Lumi we spending. Backed by renewable
energy. Alright, let's get it sorted out right now. Hold on.
And the chosen ones. Yeah. I ain't from the west, from the south, and from the east.
Tonight show, we're gonna get some answers. We're gonna get some answers and quite easy to be a part of this link, alright?
Them money no back to buy nothing.
Them money no back to buy gold.
But they keep lying to the people. No, finally the truth has been told.
Yes.
Them little fiat currencies. No transparency. No Lumi we spending. Backed by renewable
energy.
Them money no back to buy nothing.
Gonna say grand rising to all the massive. It's so good on the outside right now.
Finally the truth has been told.
The maroons. The maroons. Yes.
No Lumi we spending. Lumi.
Yes, we're spending Lumi, and as I said tonight, we are going to be touching base with the movers and shakers last week. You heard us chatting to the department in Jamaica. Yes, we talked to our brethren in Jamaica last week. This week, I think we have the man himself, Chief Timothy, indigenous name. I'm going to allow him to, introduce himself in a while. He has reached out to us, and we feel so pleased to know that this program is reaching the necessary people that it need to reach. Without any further ado, I think Janet, she also wants to be on board with us, but in the meantime, between time, we're going to see if we can rap base with the creator. And a lot of people right now, they are pushing this agenda, or engineers telling us. Just to give you a few insight as to the Lumi, you must understand that the African Kingdom, Lumi, was established as legal tender. It was established as legal tender within the 2014 Bank of Akongpong and issued to the public by the Central Solar Reserve Bank, Akongpong, as the currency of the sovereign Maroon state. Let me just break what I'm doing and welcome my brother, the chief himself. He's one of my mentor, and I want to say, Grand Rising Chief, how you doing?
Royal greetings. All is well. Blessings. Right. Thank you.
Wow. I'll allow you to introduce yourself to our listeners here at Freshradiovybz and Lumi Matters before I get in, because I'm having goosebumps. I did not expect this call, to tell the truth, and you made it happen. Introduce yourself for our listeners tonight, please.
Well, as it is Black History Month, let me greet the African family throughout the diaspora on behalf of the kings and queens across the continent of Africa, and of course our royal families throughout the diaspora community. I have the humble pleasure in introducing myself not only as the chairman of the Economic Community of the African Diaspora 6th Region, but also as the recently appointed president of the United Kingdoms of Africa, which is an office that was previously held by none other than the late Muammar Gaddafi, which is, perhaps as the first person of African descent born outside of the continent to hold such an office. It is a great prestige and honor.
Wow. You have been doing some great works, and you're very humble about your achievements. I've never seen you show this dominance to say, well, hey, I am such a. You've always let your work speak for itself, and your accomplishment as far as the Maroon Nation goes. I don't call my brothers and sisters black because I do not like to use that word black. I'd rather use the word maroon, wild and untamed. Some of the inspiration that you've brought led us to one of the main things, the Lumi, and that's why I wanted to talk with you tonight. Explain to our brothers and sisters the origin of the Lumi and why was it so important to create the Lumi?
Well, the Lumi, first and foremost, is a currency that has been structured and designed to transform in its birthplace in the Maroon territories of Jamaica, our indigenous Maroon community, but with a direct intention of engaging our family on the continent and of course the global African family. So the Maroon, or rather the Lumi currency, speaks to that nuance which our Maroon people have forgotten that they possess, and that nuance is called sovereignty. And not only do they possess sovereignty, but they must also never forget the history and the nature of that sovereignty, because of course, if I can backtrack for a moment, You know, there are three types of Africans within the diaspora. There are those who have always been there from ancient of days before the captivity. And of course, there are those who came at the time of captivity. Of course, you have those recent migrants to that Western Hemisphere. And within our maroon territories, we have both the ancient of days and those who came during the time of captivity.
Yes.
And that is, in particular, with that island of Jamaica, perhaps one of the oldest communities, with the captivity coming in 1513 in the Western Hemisphere. And so when we look at that 500 years of history, which predates, you know, the Charter of Virginia that James issued in 1606 for the United States, predates the arrival of even our people in Brazil and all those other maroon territories. We must understand what Jamaica symbolizes as an island and as a stronghold for the African diaspora people. And that is the flag of absolute sovereignty, and even the first flag to be put up in that Western Hemisphere is the Africans who came from the Iberian Peninsula and re-established sovereignty in those territories. And so the currency speaks. The currency speaks to sovereignty, to the re-establishment of an institution that is capable of transforming both the maroon community at the most local sense, as well as the global African family at the most macro level or macro sense. But please go ahead, you had a question.
Yeah, I want to learn as much as I can right now. You have touched on a very crucial point that we're linking the Lumi to a legacy that at this appropriate time, we know that our legacy is much wider than what happened in the place they call Jamaica. We know that our empire was before that, but because of the significance of the 1738 surrender of the British Crown, the Lumi stands in its sovereignty. But I want to ask you a question. When the Bank of Jamaica was trying to, for a better word, bully the Lumi as a currency, how did you approach that? Because I noticed that you made it quite clear that our sovereignty was not something that you were going to bargain with.
Well, I think the simple framework that one has to consider is that on the one hand, there is a treaty of peace and friendship that is supposed to be in existence. And a treaty is obviously made amongst sovereigns. So in addressing the Bank of Jamaica, all parties must be aware of their respective jurisdictions. And obviously, even, and I made it abundantly clear in my discussions with the previous deputy governor of the Bank of Jamaica at that time, that, you know, he shouldn't imagine for 1 second that there is a policy that he could put within his jurisdiction that would be applicable to our jurisdiction. And so, you know, there are some people who like to think at the level of force, but we like to think at the level of law. And law speaks to bilateralism, and bilateralism speaks to agreements. So if there is no mutual agreement, then anything that is made or done unilaterally is null and void and of no fundamental effect, because the parties did not agree to it. And so as sovereigns, we must always remember that bilateral agreements must be put in place. And so the Bank of Jamaica has no jurisdiction within the sovereign maroon territories. That's not even something to be negotiated or debated upon. As a matter of fact, you know, it's an insult to one's intelligence for one to go back and forth in this constant discussion about Maroon sovereignty, because there is a treaty that is in black and white. And so rather than having the ignorant debate, one must simply honor the noble accords that have been put in place. And if one cannot honor it, then that is a disregard of nobility. And in that regard, we talk specifically about, the crown on the British side as opposed to the crown on the Maroon side.
You are touching some very crucial point. People, in case you're just joining us, and I see a lot of my brothers and sisters coming in. Sorry for the late starting, but the ancestors, we are directed by the ancestors. And to tell the truth, tonight I was like, hey, we don't need to do another show. And when Chief called me, I was like, wow, I have no other choice but to do the work of the ancestors. We're talking about Lumi matters, and it says here the Lumi was created by the then Minister of Finance and founding governor of the Bank of Akongpong Town, H.H. Chief Timothy McPherson, who is a global financial engineer that hails from the Maroon territory of Queen Nanny of the Maroons of the island that they call Jamaica. Although the first AKL were printed in 2016 for the use within Akongpong Town, since 2020 the Lumi has been adopted as the official currency by numerous global bodies. Talk to me about that, because here we have the Lumi, and we still have our brothers and sisters who are contemplating if to embrace the Lumi. It says here that this currency has been accepted by global financial bodies. Could you lamentate a bit and make it more clearer to our people how connected the Lumi and how it stands on its own?
Well, on the continent, the superordinate financial authority on the continent of Africa belongs to an institution called the African Central Bank, which is established in the 1991 Abuja Treaty. And of course, the body that is responsible for organizing the African Central Bank is the African Financial Regulatory Authority as an institution of the African Economic Community.
Yes.
Now, most people tend to think and discuss the African Union, but what they forget is that the 1991 Abuja Treaty established the African Economic Community, of which the African Union is I would call it a secondary, if not even a subordinate institution to that, which is why when you look within the African Continental Free Trade Area, it makes it very clear that the galvanizing of the continent is to be achieved vis-a-vis the regional economic communities. And those regional economic communities extend across North, South, East, West, and Central Africa. And of course, the diaspora constitutes the sixth region. And ECO6 is that regional economic bloc representing the sixth region. So in terms of recognition, we have, in terms of our monetary authority within ECO6, being the African Diaspora Central Bank, we have legally engaged the African Central Bank, as well as its organizing bodies, being the African Financial Regulatory Authority. And as such, the Lumi has been accredited with full legal tender status across the continent of Africa. And that status within the ACB is superordinate to the national currencies, because it is a legal tender across the continent and across all of its regions, inclusive of the sixth region. And the framework, because so many people become preoccupied with the African Union, but the framework by which the regional economic communities interact with the African Union are formalized through what is called the Protocol on Relations between the regional economic communities and the African Union, which was established in 2008 and just ratified in 2021. So it's in terms of the operationalization of the protocol, it's quite new, which is why most people are not familiar with it. But the fact of the matter is, our people do need to take the time to understand our standing at law, as opposed to understanding our standing within the opinions of those who try to have us think in ways that are counterproductive to our own interests.
Yo, I'm telling you, Jano, you're a beacon of hope for our people. I've always, and anything I see you do, you always did do it of royal standard, you know. And when our brothers and sisters are fighting among ourselves, you always find a way for us to unite. And I just want to take this time out to tell you thanks. You know, personally, I want to tell you thanks, because this has been something that the ancestors were searching for. His Excellency the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, he was of this mind frame. I think you're one of those globalists that think of a global connection and not just a village. Me saying that now, the Lumi, as they say, it is backed by gold, and it is also backed by the solar energy. Now, our brothers and sisters out there, they don't get it when we say it's backed by solar energy and 4 grain of gold. Genuine, real gold, people. Could you clear up that for them so they can get a better understanding?
Well, I'm always shocked when people say they don't understand it. That might be a choice not to understand it, because obviously, if I talk about the United Arab Emirates, if I talk about Dubai, if I talk about Abu Dhabi, and I talk about the fact that their currencies are part and partial or semi-backed by petroleum energy, people understand that.
Yes.
So I don't know why people understand currency that is backed by petrodollars, but they don't understand currency that is backed by solar energy. And if you look even in terms of what Russia has recently done with its ruble, which has also gone to a energy-backed standard, a gas-orientated standard, we see that first and foremost, currencies around the world must return to an intrinsic value standard. Right now, in fact, the US dollar and other currencies have no intrinsic value. So we are generous in allocating value to them, because the fact of the matter is they simply print their currency without it having being backed by any commodity whatsoever, and that's been the case since 1971. So in our engagement with the continent, we bring it down to basic fundamentals. Today, there are 650 million people across the continent of Africa who have absolutely no access to electricity whatsoever. And we recognize that we must put that infrastructure in place in order to achieve our own developmental agendas. And I speak about our developmental agendas as Africans, both collectively and independently of any other international agenda. So we must recognize that for our own internal developmental purposes, we require energy. And there is no future, whether it be 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now, in which energy will not be an intricate part of our economy and an intricate part of our society. And so as such, it behooves us to be intelligent about how we utilize our framework. And of course, we recognize that solar energy is the most abundant and practical resource that we have at our availability and disposition. And so in the same way that the Emirates were able to transform their economy by utilizing petroleum energy, we recognize that the global African family has the opportunity in front of it to transform their economy by utilizing solar energy, especially recognizing that climate change is one of the biggest political discussions on the international stage today. So there's no reason for us not to take a leadership role in that discussion. And if on the one hand you have a leadership that is prepared to talk climate change, but isn't prepared to take the actions that speak to, putting the monetary instruments in place and putting the necessary infrastructure in place, then again, they're just engaged in the movement of lips, which is politics. And I'm not a politician. So that's why you want to be talking too much on these topics, because there's actual work that needs to be done. When I'm traveling throughout the continent, when I'm in South Africa, when I'm in Zimbabwe, when I'm in Nigeria, when I'm in Ghana, when I'm in Ethiopia, I see our youth sitting down waiting for opportunities. Their hands are idle. And so we have to put those hands to work. And obviously, renewable energy and solar energy in particular isn't just a base science like the extraction of oil. It actually is a knowledge-driven science, which means we have an opportunity in front of us not only to build our economy based upon sustainable frameworks, but also to educate a whole new cadre of young Africans on how to interact again with our natural resources. And that goes from the sun, the moon, the stars, back down to the planet Earth. Even at the most basic level, if you take classic farming, take for example, someone who is growing bananas, we know that the banana shoot needs 10 to 12 months to grow. Or if you're growing cannabis, you know that you need 8 months for your crop to grow. But when you talk about that time, what you're really talking about is a period of time of exposure of the plant to the sun. And if you don't get that adequate level of sun on your agricultural crop, then you're not going to have a good crop. So common sense tells us that solar energy in any case drives our entire agricultural economy. And of course, we just connect it now to the next step which we must engage in, which is industrialization. And so from an industrialization perspective, we take control of our resources. It belongs to that ancient statement in the beginning of the book where Adam is told to domesticate the earth. So let us domesticate all those resources that we have at our own disposal and availability, and use our common sense to use it to apply it intelligently for developmental purposes.
Chief, I have some more questions. I know it's quite late where you are right now, but trust me that the momentum is great. We see where digital currency is coming to the forefront of our day-to-day living, and some of us are very skeptical, because we have seen where digital money can be wiped out in nothing. Millions can be wiped out in a matter of seconds. The question people are asking is, will there be a distribution of a note, like a dollar note, a paper note, alongside the digital note of the Lumi?
So let me be absolutely clear about this.
Yes.
When Lumi was first introduced in Akampong, it was not introduced as a digital currency, it was introduced as a physical currency. And Lumi will forever be a physical currency. As we continue with our global distribution of Lumi, we are already working on the next generation design of the physical note. I won't go into too many details with that in the discussion, but we're already working on the next generation design. And that design, although it will be committed to the global family, it will maintain its birthplace markings in terms of its maroon identity, so that at a global level, the African family recognizes and remembers that it is indeed the Maroon community that has taken this sovereign step towards economic autonomy for the global African family. family. So while we are changing some nuances of the design, the spirit of origin will not be removed. So yes, Lumi does circulate today as a digital currency throughout the continent. It has a footprint in 194 countries around the world. But we will maintain the physical presence with Lumi as well. One of the reasons for only circulating one note is because of how robust Lumi is as a currency. As you would appreciate, in our current underwriting of Lumi, one Lumi note is, in our primary underwriting, is valued at $15.96 US dollars. And of course, its day-to-day value, because it is pegged at 4 grams of gold, its day-to-day value fluctuates in direct correlation with the parity value of 4 grains of gold. So we printed one note because we recognize that one note would suffice when being integrated with a digital framework.
People, in case you were going to say something a while ago, you were going to say something, because I'm soaking up everything that you're uttering right now.
So only to make it clear, while the rest of the central banking community in their naivety is looking at a absolute control framework in which they do away with physical notes and have everybody obliged to their digital framework, which I do not endorse, there will always be a physical Lumi note, which is complemented by distribution.
Yes, beautiful. Just a bit of facts here on the Lumi Matter Show. Underwritten by the solar energy through power purchase agreements, the currency is worth a 100 kWh on solar energy, with a fixed valuation at 4 grains of gold, that is 0.2592 grams for 1 AKL. The Lumi is no longer used the Lumi is no longer used as their Kongpong currency. It is now used by the African Diaspora Central Bank since the Central Solar Reserve Bank was destituted by Colonel Richard Curry. I am reading off the net right there. Can you explain what I'm reading? Let me finish. When he replaced Colonel Farran as the new elected head of the state of Akongpong, could you explain right there that is on the web right there, when they say that it is now the African Diaspora Central Bank having that full say and not the Bank of Akongpong?
Well, I don't want to go too much into the politics of it, because as I said, I'm not a politician.
No.
And as a chief, we have a different outlook than politicians. Politicians come for 5 years and get reelected. At least a multi-generations of how we seek to integrate things. So what I would say is that in Curry's to establish quite, how shall we, with his enthusiasm to establish his new office,
his legacy,
with his enthusiasm to establish his new office and legacy, he took some antagonistic views towards the Lumi, which I could only describe as being naive.
Yes.
And I say that with great generosity. Obviously, when you are operating a state, and it doesn't matter what the state is, but let us focus on our Maroon territories.
Yes.
And you are trying to reposition those territories to be all that they could be in this 21st century. Then everything that speaks to our sovereignty must remain in place. So you don't come into power and immediately try to get rid of the sovereign monetary instrument that was intended to transform the economic circumstances of the state. That becomes illogical. And I don't want to make any personality attacks. So I don't want to pursue that direction of discussion too far. Only to say that at the time of transition, and actually just before he had come into office, we had made the agreement with the bank, and we had already engaged the executive bodies within the African Economic Community so that the Maroon territories would be able to engage in trade with the continent. And so to protect the relation of the diaspora, to protect the relation of our people and our intentions towards the continent, we needed to create an institution of higher stability. And because ECO6 had multiple members at that time, so keeping in mind that we had a very diverse membership, it wasn't because of Curry in any case that it was migrated to the African Diaspora Central Bank. The African Diaspora Central Bank is an authorized institution within the ECO6 Treaty, and it is the official monetary authority for the 6th region. So the migration of Lumi into the African Diaspora Central Bank was in a timely manner and done precisely when it was supposed to be done. The only difference being that obviously the Central Solar Reserve Bank would have been one of the financial institutions partnering with the African Diaspora Central Bank. Now, what happened after Curry came into power was we simply had to put that institution, in terms of all of its legal liabilities and obligations, into a liquidation status, and the ECB took on full responsibility for that. So that's just to address your question with regards to what happened at that.
We're talking about Lumi matters, and of course the Lumi is a trendsetter. What you have done is give life to the sentiments that where there's no vision, our people will perish. And I strongly believe that as the biggest spending economical giant on planet Earth, we the Maroons, and I said this holistically because I don't call my brothers and sisters black, I believe if we get behind this currency, we are a force to be reckoned with. There are people out there who are knowledgeable of what you're doing. But I want to ask you, as far as the sabotage, the challenges, how does that sit in your frame of mind? Do you accept the challenges, and how do you try to paint the picture to others to say, well, this will benefit not only me but benefit all of us? How do you deal with that day-to-day challenge?
Well, I would have to frame perhaps the question differently, because it's not about me at all. It's about our community at a global level. And what we see right now is the kingdoms across the continent of Africa non-apologetically championing Lumi. It is the African Lumi. They're integrating it. They've designated Lumi as the official currency of the kingdoms. And I think it's important for people to understand what exactly that means. Keeping in mind that prior to the 1884 Berlin Conference, obviously our ancestors came from the kingdoms. They didn't come from the states. Those states did not exist. And so the colonial attack was actually an attack against our kingdoms. It was an attack against our ancestral mechanisms of governance, keeping in mind that historically poverty is unknown to the African family. We came from a land of great abundance. When the Europeans heard about a gold rush and found themselves rushing to Western California or to this place and that place. Africans never needed to partake in a gold rush because we knew ourselves to be filled with abundance economically in that regard. And so now that you see the kingdoms declaring Lumi as their legal tender and currency and integrating it within their chieftaincies and within their realms, that also speaks to the rise of our ancient cultural spirit, getting beyond this age of shackles and captivity, recognizing that yes, we've gone through years of captivity, but for a people that have been on this planet for millions of years, what is 400 and 500 years to us? And indeed, for those of us who are spiritually inclined, we only need look as far as Genesis 15, where it is said that your people will go into captivity, your seed will go into captivity for 400 years. So these things were foretold from days of old and are of no surprise to us, or should be of no surprise to us when we see it manifest in this current dispensation. So for the kingdoms now, for the kingdoms to take hold of Lumi, it perhaps even belongs to the next part of that promise, because it says, not only will we go into captivity for 400 years, but after those 400 years, I will judge the nations whom you serve, and then you will come out with great abundance and wealth and plenty. And so now the kingdoms are taking control of their own destiny, of their own wealth, of their own abundance, of their own plenty, and utilizing Lumi to transform their condition. So coming to your question about the challenges.
Yes.
The challenges have been there for the last 400 years and 500 years. You could not be more challenged than what our ancestors have already gone through. So now we don't think about the challenges, we think about the solutions. And the solutions mean having sovereign instruments of power, not only from the monetary instrumental level, but also from the administrative level, so that we recognize that in having our traditional leaders, we don't have to be worried about a tug of war between two political parties where one party comes into power and undoes everything that the other party had put in place beforehand. No, with our kings, we can sit down at this very moment. All of the discussions that I'm having on the continent are discussions that speak to 50 and 60-year developmental plans, because we understand that through working with our indigenous traditional leadership, we're not going to be confronted by that political mechanism of divide and its outcome, which is conquer.
Yes.
We go back to the ancient understanding of ourselves as an African.
You know, I don't know. See, I believe it is. I can't even call it egotistical, because, you know, I'm talking to you, and when I, from the very first time I talked to you, Chief, you have never, ever put out this vibes as if you're a ruler over no one. You're bringing the solution to the table. This is one of the best solution for our people, you know. And when I see how people are. Some people would like us to approach this in an ignorant and boisterous manner, and I said, no, this is something good that we have, and I know it is bearing fruit, because every single time that we do this program, people are asking questions, they're getting more acquainted with the conversation as to where we want to go and how we can do it. As you said a while ago, our resources, as far as currency, it goes hand in hand. The water project need finance, the housing need finance, the farming need finance. So currency is going to play a very, very important role in the way forward. Now, you are living on the continent of Africa. You're on the continent of Africa, and you say you're meeting with movers and shakers, not the corporation in say, but the chieftain, and you're getting a warm embrace from them, because they themselves see the injustice that is being dished out to our brothers and sisters. Some of the projects, like I know you said solar goes with the Lumi. Can you itemize some of the projects that you are passionate about with the Lumi playing a major role in it for our people?
Oh, thank you very much for asking that question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Let me be clear about it. As an industrialist, I have many passions.
Yes.
And of course, one of my big hobbies at the moment is looking at the arts. Now, it is no secret that come 2030, we can expect to see the disbanding of most gas-consuming vehicles. And so that means that going forward, most of the automotive solutions will either be H2-based or solar energy-based or some kind of electrical solution. And so for me, the position is to say we cannot afford as a people to sit back and wait for Elon Musk or whoever to dominate the future of our transportation. We must begin to put our own minds collectively as a people towards thinking about, well, what kind of transportational solutions do we want to have? And what kind of transportational solutions can we tangibly achieve ourselves in this 21st century? So at the moment, I'm very big on electric cars. I'm not necessarily big on the current battery solutions that they have in place.
Yes.
In fact, I'm significantly in opposition to that. But having made that statement, there's a lot of alternative solutions. And so on the continent right now, there's a lot of brilliant young minds. I've met some geniuses coming out of Tanzania. For non-disclosure purposes, I can't necessarily talk about the solutions that they have, but some of our brothers are doing phenomenal things in the automotive sector. And so we need to start thinking at that level. We've seen what the rest of the world has to offer in terms of its transportation solutions. What they have not seen is what we have to offer. And so in terms of Lumi's investment, recognizing that the future will be green, either we become passive consumers in that future, or we take on an industrialist approach and a sustainable approach and become partners and or leaders in that future. So I've been engaging a lot of our young geniuses on the continent who have dynamic prototypes within the automotive sector, and looking at how we could take those prototypes and bring it to the next level of development. And that's something I'm very passionate about at the moment. Obviously, there's there's a lot of spin-off effects to that, because in making that area of engagement, again, these are knowledge-driven solutions. And so it means supporting academia, supporting institutions, technical colleges and institutes of higher learning, but specifically with a technical approach to giving our youth skills-based learning so that they can participate, even if they don't become the full designers or partake in the full value chain, that at least they're able to partake at some level in that job chain of manufacturing. So again, because I'm watching my language, because I don't want to give away the secrets of some of the phenomenal things that I've seen over there. So only to say that transportation is very important. And that is both on ground and in air transportation. There's a lot of aerial solutions that are being produced as well. And let me just say this, that while the international community has put all of their ideas on the table, let us never forget that in order for them to achieve those ideas, 80% of all the resources they require are coming from the continent of Africa. And so we must completely step away from being the exporters of raw material and make sure that we are contributing to the manufacturing process. And when we contribute to that manufacturing process, we must then have some voice in terms of what our solutions look like. I'll just toy with you on another topic that I'm passionate about. It's also telecommunications and design. So as Maroons, we have Arabang. So one of the things that I've been going on about in terms of a design is obviously, I don't know, don't even say it. Don't even say it. Timmy, chief. This is why I'm saying that you are an energy source of great importance to our people, and you're touching some point where we can't even discuss it openly because we know that people out there will move at these things, but we've touched on the resource point. We see where the Congo, every cell phone that is in our hands right now has something to do with the Congo. It has something to do with the Congo. And here we, as you said a while ago, all 80% of the plan of the people out there who don't own the resource is depending on us to stay null and void and ignorant to the soil and the resource that we're walking on every day. We're saying that we're poor, but in the midst of water, we're thirsty. We're thirsty because, as you said, some of these teachings are not reaching inside of the young, the youthful, creative brains that are sit idly out there, which could mean so much. I'm going to read something here. They said that there currently is only one banknote which represents one Lumi. In 2021, the African Diaspora Central Bank, the ADCB, reported a total of US $1.1 trillion in transaction between Africa and the global diaspora using the Lumi. This is equal to more than a third of the total GDP for continental Africa, at US $2.7 trillion in 2021. This is where we're talking. I have Chief Timothy McPherson on the line right now. He is putting it out. It is such a joy just to hear him talk about this and some of the things that the Lumi is it's in the way of doing. What else do you have to put on the icing when it comes on to the Lumi? Because I don't think we need to convince anyone else that this is the way to go. Well, at the end of the day, you see, we must look at ourselves as being participants in a competition. And if that competition is called the market economy, then we have to do a proper accounting of our resources and what we have to offer to that market economy. And if when you're finished your accounting, you find yourself having the lion's share, well, that's just the way the numbers work. And you shouldn't be ashamed at any time to come forth with what you have. Usain Bolt was never ashamed to win a race.
No.
So why are we afraid to partake in the economic competition and show ourselves as great victors within the economy?
Wow.
You see?
Wow, I'm telling you, it is such a pleasure to chat with you, and I do hope that you find some other time. I'm going to officially let you know that every Wednesday we are here about the Lumi. Whosoever who plays a role in this, I do encourage your team to make this channel something where we can have a reason and a conversation about progressiveness. And I think the Lumi is the heights of progressiveness that our people need at this crucial time. We need to own our destiny, and the only way we can own our destiny is by having our own identity, our own money, our own industrial complex, our own inventions, take them and put them to the better part of what it means to be indigenous. And we've come to the end. I only have 2 more minutes, but allow you to do a closing, Chief. I'll allow you to do a closing.
Well, let me just say, if you only have 2 minutes.
No, man, no. I can give you any amount of time you want, but I'm mindful.
No.
I am mindful of your time also.
Let me just say,
yes,
and it's ironically that I will take this statement. When Andrew Holness visited Akampong during my term as Minister of Finance,
yes,
one of the statements that he made was he acknowledged that the Maroon territories are indeed the safest place on the island and the safest place in the hemisphere. And he said, perhaps the time has come for the outer communities looking in to start taking the lessons from the Maroons. And that means that safety, there's a component within our ancestral identity which has allowed us to have safety in our communities for these last 300 years. And that means that we have to come back to that spirit of our own Garden of Eden and take that leadership role as Adam did. Our Maroon leaders have a great opportunity before them, a great opportunity before them to lead the global African family in a new era, peace, prosperity, and well-being spiritually, psychologically, socially. We don't have to think like capitalists. We can learn the lessons of industrialization without thinking about excessive materialism. That's not the agenda. We're just trying to maintain a state of well-being amongst our people. As I said, poverty is foreign to the African imagination. It was imposed on us, and we shall do away with it. So in that spirit and in that light, I say to you, blessings, ancestral powers, and the time has come. The time has come. Let us not focus on these last 400 and 500 years. Let us know that we come from a much greater history and that we have a much greater future ahead of us. Blessings to you, and thank you so much for having me.
I pray the ancestors keep protecting you, and the visions that you bring forth for the nation, may they harness and grow in multitudes. And I hope our brothers and sisters will see the sight beyond sight that the ancestors have blessed you. It's really was a joy to have you on this program, and we look forward to chatting with you more and getting a little bit of your time, because you have so much things doing on planet Earth. You're not from Earth, but you're doing so much for our people. Thank you so much, Chief Timothy McPherson. Thank you so much.
Madasi, Siyabonga.
Ashe. Wow, there you have it. Yeah, there you have it. Of course, as I said before, Lumi Matters, we are up to the last little bit of it. I'm going to get in Ulrich, and we will move. It was spontaneous, it was nice, but every single Wednesday we bring Lumi to our brothers and sisters so you can be a part of it. Remember, the Lumi, it is the currency that is representing the Maroons. Although the AKL Lumi was printed in 2016 for the use with the Akongpong, within Akongpong since 2020, the Lumi has been adopted as the official currency by numerous governmental body. This is yours truly, Ratgadites. Let me get some word in and then I'll be right forward.
Fresh Radio Vibes and NSMGTNT in association with the State of African Diaspora, SOAD, presents Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Hosted by Janet Lovely, International Business Development Officer and representative for the Lumi via Canada. Learn how the Lumi matters in business, barter exchange, travel investment, saving accountability, Listen to the insiders about Lumi Matters each Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Only on Freshradiovybz. Listen now and stay connected. Lumi Matters. Lumi Matters.
Study to show yourself approved. You know what I mean? You want the truth? Make sure you can handle the truth. Shoot about the money. Telling you the truth about the money. Yeah. You wanna shoot for the money? Only if you know the truth, man. Okay. Shit. In the 1940s, money and gold. Everything did I work well until America start hustle. The other countries start shuffling, demanding back them gold on the double. Now in a 1971, President Nixon made the money and the gold decouple now. The money no back to buy nothing, but it used to be back to buy gold. But they keep lying to the people. Now finally the truth has been told. Them make a fiat currencies, no transparency. No Lumi we spending, backed by renewable energy. Lumi, tell you about the Lumi. It's not a fiat, nor a cryptocurrency. It's underwritten by 100 kilowatt hours of solar energy. Shit, convertible to 4 grains of gold. Wait, 0.2592 grams. Now a 15.96 US equal to 1. So the money no back to buy nothing, but it used to be back to buy gold. But they keep lying to the people. Now finally the truth has been told. Them little fiat currencies, no transparency. No Lumi me spending, backed by renewable energy. Shit, I was chosen to shine the light bright on the chosen ones. Yeah, I ain't from the west, from the south, I'm from the east, man. Africa and not wrong. Me no need no US, me no need no pound. The Lumi dollars put diamonds on the crown. I don't give a damn who on the throne.
Thank you so much for joining us. Join us next week again when we will do it all over. Lumi Matters. Keep it right here on Freshradiovybz. Live right now.
Them little fiat currencies, no transparency. No Lumi we spending, backed by renewable energy. Them money not backed by nothing. Pull it up again, pull it up again, pull it up again. We know our history. Them little fiat currencies, no transparency. No Lumi we spending, Lumi. Shit.
Yeah, Lumi we're spending. Thank you so much. Until next week, join us and we'll do it all over again.
Me have the grip, it is the tighter, the tightest. Any man will like